Well, the Ford government has been working to demonopolize the alcohol industry for years now, but what does this mean for the LCBO and its workers? For more on this, we are joined now by David Clement. He is the North American Affairs Manager with the Consumer Choice Centre. We've reached him tonight in Burlington, Ontario. Welcome to the program. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much for having me.
So LCBO workers are officially on strike. It's a historic strike. Walk me through how the monopoly on the alcohol industry in Ontario plays into this job action.
Yeah, so it's important to note that the LCBO has a monopoly in two senses. One is on the wholesale side, so all alcohol, and you alluded to it in your earlier coverage here, all alcohol, whether it's restaurants or even at wineries or distillers, flows through the LCBO. It's also a monopoly in terms of the sale of spirits and most wines. And so the reason why this strike has such an impact is because the province gives the LCBO the exclusive right to sell spirits and most wines. And so that is really why we're seeing consumers be hit hard, because the options are then significantly limited if you're looking for those types of products.
You know, the LCBO is a big revenue driver for the province. Why would the province want to pull it apart?
Because it would generate more revenue. And it would generate more revenue because the retail operation of the LCBO isn't actually what generates the revenue for the province. The figure gets thrown out about $2.5 billion. Mm-hmm. Most of that comes from the wholesale markup and point of sale taxation, both of which can be done by private retailers, because if you were to have a private retailer, they have to buy the alcohol that they sell through the LCBO. The LCBO has already taken their portion, that part of that money that goes to the dividend to the province. And we already do this with cannabis.
Right.
The Ontario Cannabis Store doesn't own a single retail storefront. They just act as the wholesaler. And so we would be able to offload a considerable amount of burden and costs on taxpayers and increase consumer access and consumer choice in the process.
You know, the Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford, has said repeatedly that he wants to kind of modernize the industry and give consumers more choice. What would this process look like beyond, the beer and wine and convenience stores? What would it look like if there was more choice within the industry and the LCBO as a retail location, as you said, was not there anymore?
Yeah, so the first step would be demonopolizing the sale of spirits. So allow for other outlets to sell spirits. The second would be to continue to expand whom can sell alcohol, so long as obviously they have a license. It shouldn't just be restricted to corner stores and grocery stores. If somebody wants to open up a shop that's exclusively French wines or Kentucky bourbons or Okanagan wines, they should be able to do that, and we should encourage that type of entrepreneurship in the space. And the LCBO monopoly is arguably the biggest hurdle to it. And so that would be the first step in terms of starting to take apart this prohibition era system. And then what happens from there is deciding what to do with the LCBO in terms of if it can compete. But if we were to snap our fingers and have the LCBO not exist as a retailer and have private retailers exist instead, we'd probably save over $600 million a year in Ontario just in overhead.
And just, take me through some examples of other provinces where this is already happening, because this is not a new concept.
No, it's not a new concept. And just to reiterate, it already happens here with cannabis. So we have a system that we can already refer to in terms of what goes on in Ontario. But Alberta operates this way. They have the government as the monopoly, as the wholesaler. That's how they make their revenue. But they have private retailers. BC has a mixed model, which is what I could imagine a transition model for Ontario would look like, where you allow for private retailers to exist. Highly profitable LCBOs obviously continue to exist and compete, but you start to sell some of the real estate out to private entrepreneurs and other corporations who may want to enter the space to fill the void.
All right, David, interesting conversation. Appreciate your time tonight. That is David Clement, who is the North American Affairs Manager with the Consumer Choice Center.